we've got Lent, the 40 days fast, and Passion Week. And during that period, we're also strong spiritually, and we've got plenty of quiet time, and we've got Holy Week, and everything's going great. And then you got the 50 days, and you start to eat a lot, and you start to get comfortable, and you start to relax. And this is what personally happens to me. It might not happen to you. And then everything, some of that spirituality that you got during Lent and Passion Week starts to fall, and then you get towards the end of the year, and you're just in need of that push before Nativity Feast. So I think something that, and me and Michael discussed this a bit before while we were talking about the topic, something that we want to really emphasize is that spirituality does require discipline, and that's how we develop it. Sometimes it's not about, I really feel like praying today, or, the heavens moved and suddenly I want to pray. Sometimes it's about pushing ourselves and having that discipline and those routines and that development. So, Michael, thank you so much.
The girls at the back, do you want to come up closer so we can have a chat? I think we get more out of things when we discuss them. I'll just wait for Mina to put up the slides so that we can get going. But how is everyone? Good. Very good. Disciplined? No? You've had a pretty free week? Yeah? YOLO? Yeah. Yeah, I think so. What do you guys think of this topic in just in general? Like, who here would consider themselves like, planned, pretty disciplined, like head down type of person? No? Do you know many people, like friends, that you would describe this way? In aspects, okay, that's a good point. Yeah. The high achievers. And they've always been like that? Yeah, the parents are like that? Interesting. If they use French. If they're okay, so to be disciplined, learn Microsoft Excel, maybe visit China, or buddy yourself up with a few Chinese or Asian people, not just Chinese, but they're pretty disciplined. Yeah, they're like robots. All right, awesome. Thanks, man. Okay, we can get started. No, I'll use both. This I thought I'd get a click of that. All good. Okay. All right. Well, we can get started into this. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. So to kick things off, firstly, I think it's important that you sort of ask God for a message from tonight. We're not just here having a chat and leaving. So, that's on you to ask God to work within your heart in any way possible. To kick things off, I thought we'd start with like an icebreaker. Okay, so here's like a question, some food for thought. It's probably an abstract one, but one to get us going, to warm us up. So, which one would you rather be? This light bulb, or the other object in the screen there is a laser pointer. And when you answer, you tell me which one you would rather be, for any reason, and explain that reason as to why. Mina.
I'm going to say light bulb because a light bulb can light a room, but a laser can't. Like, laser is very direct. It's a bit selfish.
Interesting. Okay. Oh, okay. Times two. So light bulb because it's more giving. Interesting. Any other takers? Any other thoughts?
I would have to agree with Mina. I didn't think of the selfish part, but now that he said it, I agree with that as well.
Light bulbs are prettier.
Light bulbs are pretty. Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
They're just like they cover more.
They
Like
cover
I'd rather be someone who can relate to a lot of things than just,
straight 180.
you know? Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, kind of.
Is there any laser pointer people?
Yeah, yeah.
I want to hear from
any,
the laser
any.
pointer.
Oh, really? Everyone here
You
prefers
look
to be
like
a
you were
light bulb.
laser pointer first. You were?
I think I am, but I would rather be
Say it again.
Based on Mina's explanation, I think I am a laser pointer, but I would rather be a light. So a light.
You'd rather be a light bulb, but you think you're probably best described as a laser pointer. Any other thoughts? No.
I like to be a light bulb to light up the room.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Christ does say, let your light so shine. So that's a fair enough point. Okay. They're all very interesting answers, by the way, and thank you for sharing them. That's, I guess, a little bit of a segue into the topic, which, as Mina said, is spiritual discipline, and more accurately, spiritual development tonight. And we want to start to reframe thinking about what we do with who we want to become. And so it's really discipline, but for the sake of development, not just sort of abstract discipline. Okay, so I'm going to sort of disagree with you a little bit, but before we get into that, around the light bulb and the laser pointer, how do we define success? Having a light bulb moment in life, I guess, is only going to get you so far. So yeah, I get the point around it being pretty and all of that, but I'm just going to take a different angle. And so just like a laser pointer, I think our ability to focus, right, the scattered light, which does give light to the room, but it doesn't go so far. It's nice, it's pretty, it's there temporarily, I guess, for a sort of an immediate purpose. But to create a real single powerful beam, I guess that's what a laser pointer actually does. So it's the motivation in life, I guess, gets you going, like it's the starting point. But discipline really is what keeps you growing. Yeah, so there's a short term and a long term to this. And why this is valuable is because self-discipline is one of the main keys to success in life. So you'll see that it's not the goals you set, but almost in every aspect of your life, it's the discipline that makes the difference. So you can set a goal, but if you don't have that discipline to pursue it, then you're not really going to achieve that goal. A lot of people have goals. We all sort of tend to make goals, and sometimes we switch those goals. We decide one thing today, and then we then change that, potentially once we hear something from a friend or something. And so it's really that discipline that helps us keep going. And so what I'm trying to do, I guess, is show you that one key aspect to success is really that focus in life and that discipline. So for example, take health as a sort of a study case or a case study. A lot of people come and they ask me, for example, like, how do you look so good? Like, what's your secret? What do you do? And now obviously, like, you can't get this physique, Yani, just like haphazardly. It doesn't just come around. I don't know why people are laughing, but so clearly, like, I gym often, multiple times a week, sometimes twice a day. I have a strict keto diet. I'm giving you my secrets now. And I skip out on dinner every sort of Wednesday and Friday, like what Christians should be doing. In St. Mary's fast, of course, like, I only really had, some bread, water, like very simple food. But seriously, like everything we practice leads us down to a particular path. Yeah, everything you do is one step closer to something. Okay? So for example, if I decide not to eat a particular chocolate, then actually what I'm doing there is I'm taking a step towards becoming a healthier person. that every decision you make makes a difference. And so I guess I've sort of summarized that in this point, which is saying no to one thing is a step towards something. Saying no to one thing, it's just one thing, but it is actually a step towards something at the same time. And so I think, you make so many decisions in life. Each one of those are really sort of setting the course, setting the path. You're going this way, then you're going that way, based on every single one of those decisions. And it's the small things that nobody sees that leads to the big things that everybody wants. So it's the small decisions, the things you do in your room, the things you do behind closed doors, what you do in the morning, what you do at night, how you prepare your day, how you eat your breakfast, how you brush your teeth. It's all those small things that nobody sees that leads to the big things that everybody wants. And even if the difference isn't seen, it's always stored somewhere. So if I take you back to the health example, or the calories and eating a chocolate, you're not going to see a difference the moment you eat a chocolate. If I eat something today, I'm not going to really notice any difference, but that doesn't mean that something hasn't happened. Those calories are still stored somewhere inside, and they'll eventually convert to fat cells, and they're there for good until, I lose them in some way. So, and in a way, that's similar to the story of Adam and Eve. When Eve ate of the apple, she didn't immediately see the consequence of her actions. She didn't die on the spot. But something did creep into humanity. The human nature began to corrupt, and the damage was there. There was something stored even though it's not seen. So we've established, I hope, and challenge me if you disagree, that discipline leads to success. Does anyone sort of disagree with that premise as a starting point? Why is discipline important? Why are we talking about it? Because without it, I think we really lose one important aspect to success in life, in all aspects, and especially in our spiritual lives as well. Yes, are we on the same page? Because I want it to be a conversation. If you disagree, let's have the debate. All right. New Year's resolutions. It's a fun topic, one that I actually personally like. Who here made New Year's resolutions this year? Put your hands up, show of hands. Right up, so I can see. Okay, so if you look around, hands up, look around. So quite a fair few, I would have thought more, but okay. Quite a fair few created resolutions, yeah? So you notice that it's a common thing. Okay, put your hand up when I go through this if you had these particular resolutions, okay? I'll go one by one. To finish your studies. Anybody had that resolution? Okay, okay, 2, 3, okay. Trade in a car, upgrade a car, sell a car, anything to do with a car? Was that anybody's? Oh, you had a lot on your list. To travel? Book a holiday, travel with some family. Okay, that's a little bit of a common one. I know it requires a bit of money, so might be a bit hard, that one. To confess. Who said, look, I haven't confessed in ages this year. I'm either going to confess once or I'm going to confess regularly. Yeah. Okay. That's a good spiritual goal to have. Attend church. Is that attend church, Christmas, Easter, Passion Week, take it off every Sunday. Yeah, something around attendance. Get a job or quit a job. Some people that like their jobs, they say, this is the year I'm going to free myself. Oh, that's a big one. All right, I guess it's appropriate to the age group. Buy a house. That one's a bit hard these days. I don't think anyone should have that on there. Peter's on a multi-million-dollar pay package. Pray. We put that down as a goal. Pray daily, pray throughout the day, arrow prayers, prayer. Okay, that's pretty common as well. To fast, either fast properly, fast with abstinence. Okay, again, quite common. Less thumb to thumb. In other words, like phone usage, social media, minimize time on the screen, devices. Okay, that's a common one obviously these days. more face-to-face, more socializing, being out with family and friends and, the meaningful things. Reading the Bible, reading anything, spiritual books, novels. Okay, that's quite popular. Yeah, reading's really become not so common these days. Okay, losing weight every year. I don't have that problem, so okay. Okay, getting married, finding someone, or if you found someone, progressing to the next step. No, that's not a goal. Okay, that's interesting. So if you had looked around, I think what you'll notice is that many people put up their hands for a lot of these options. Okay, and sometimes the same people. And so what does that tell you? What does that tell you about goals? That they're all similar, that we all have the same goals. Now, how many of us achieved those goals? Achieved some of them, one of them, two of them. Yeah? Okay, this is good. A few, but 20%, right? So the hands are much fewer when we talk about achieving these goals. Now, why is that? Why is that the case, that not many of us were able to achieve these goals? Discipline. Yeah? Cool. Very good. We maybe lacked discipline, but I'll take it one step further. You probably didn't have a plan. And we need a plan. Okay, so that's our next sort of stage. We've established that discipline achieves success, and that goals here aren't enough. Okay, in our lives, we can't just have goals. We've all had them. We've all got many of them, but we sort of struggle, and they're all the same. We all do the same, want the same thing, but not all of us then achieve it. And I think the difference is that we don't all have a plan. So you've probably heard this many times, right? If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. Now, if there's one person that we would consider disciplined, we all know this person, a well-known apostle, somebody who's written half the books or more, just under, I think, the books of the New Testament. It would be St. Paul. And he'd be considered one of the most sort of successful or disciplined or dedicated Christians that ever lived. What just happened? Well, let's take a look at his, let's call it his CV, his resume. In 2 Corinthians, we hear the things that St. Paul had to go through. So if this isn't discipline, then I don't know what is. I'll read it to you. In labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequently, in deaths often. So if any of these you had ever faced, I think you'd already be, almost like a saint in the church. And the list keeps going. From the Jews, 5 times I received 40 stripes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. I mean, I don't know if anyone's faced anything similar to this. 3 times I was shipwrecked. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I have been in the deep, in journeys often, in pearls of water, in pearls of robbers, in pearls of my own countrymen, in pearls of the Gentiles, in pearls of the city, in pearls of the wilderness. Pearls means like struggles, in tribulation. In pearls of the sea, in pearls of false brethren, in weariness and toil, in sleeplessness often, in hunger and thirst, in fasting often, in cold and nakedness. So this person has obviously, St. Paul has really endured a lot and still kept the course, still maintained his faith, and was still, serving God to the very end. Can any of us remotely relate to this person? Do you think, anything you've done in your service, in your personal life to date would even come close to one of these tribulations that St. Paul has endured? Anybody? Any takers? No? I didn't think so. And yet, he remains disciplined, okay? Now, if we look at this same person who's obviously very, very disciplined, he says in Romans 7, "For the good that I will to do, I do not do, but the evil I will not to do, that I practice." Okay, so this really just shows you that if even St. Paul pretty much struggles to achieve this goal, right? if I will to do something, I'm not doing it. The things I don't want to do, I end up doing. Yeah, I've got a goal, and he's failing on these goals, I guess, in a way similar to us. And that's due to, obviously, our corrupted nature. So if St. Paul says this, then obviously for you and I, because of our fallen nature, having a goal just probably isn't enough. Okay, we need a plan, and we can't become good just randomly. Like nothing good is just going to happen haphazardly, right? You actually have to intend to do it and to put in the hard yards to get there. Okay, is everyone sort of convinced so far with that? Okay, so I've defined here what we're going to call a plan, or how I want you to think of the plan. So a plan is essentially a series of pre-arranged decisions and rules. Okay, so it's something you've premeditated and you've decided, I'm going to do this when this happens, and when this occurs, this is the way I'll go. All right, and it's really us making those decisions when we're in the right frame of mind, because when we do come to a situation, you're stressed, or you may make the wrong decision. Okay, and you have particular rules in your life. So if you say, I do not do this, it becomes a rule, and you don't break those rules. You don't make exceptions. For example, I don't use bad language. No matter what happens, that's my rule. Like I need to fall back on that rule. And I make this decision when I'm, wanting to do the right thing, when I'm optimistic, when, I've prayed, when, I'm ready to do well. Not everything's going crap and then I just sort of spit the dummy and let it all be. It is what it is. And then layering these plans, so you can have, you'll have multiple plans. Like you don't just have one plan for you. For the same plan doesn't achieve everything. For every goal and for everything you want to do, you have multiple plans. And layering these plans together, I guess, is what we're going to call a canon. Has anyone heard of that word before? A spiritual canon. Yeah. In Arabic, it's called like qanun. And does anyone know what the word qanun sort of literally is defined as? Law or rule. So it's a serious thing. It's a rule. It's something that I don't waver from. This is what I'm going to follow. Okay. So this spiritual canon is essentially a series of plans put together, layered together. For those who maybe are visual learners, I've tried to sort of put it into a visual just so you can remember it. So if you have multiple plans layered, and then you put that into your spiritual life, you come up with what we will define as a spiritual canon. And so what I'm saying is, if you want success in your spiritual life, I guess we want to try and achieve having this sort of canon. Okay? All right. So let's take a little example so we can sort of flesh it out a bit. If we had a canon to learn hymns, right? It's a very specific sort of subset of a plan that you would have. But if you wanted to learn hymns, what would that look like? So for example, you'd need to free up time. Okay, you need to schedule in your calendar to go to hymns lessons every single week, right? You need to replace, say, music that you're listening to in the car with hymns, for example. Every morning when I go to work, go to uni, go wherever I go, instead of listening to this, I'm going to listen to hymns. I'll pack wireless headphones in my gym bag so that when I'm at the gym, I've got an ability to listen to some hymns, right? This is creating this canon or this sort of comprehensive plan to try and achieve these spiritual goals. Right? This is, I think, practically how we try and think about being disciplined. It's just really a series of decisions, a series of rules that you set in place and you follow. And then, we'll get to it later, but eventually that sort of just becomes habitual. Okay, you attend midweek services. I know there's a mass during the week. They say the hymns that I'm trying to learn, I'm going to attend the midweek mass at this church at this time with this, priest or deacon, and that's going to be part of my canon. I'm going to enter a hymns competition. I know there's this competition. It's going to encourage me to learn hymns within a sort of a time frame. I'm going to be tested on it, and that's another thing I'll write down. I'm going to socialize with deacons on Sunday, or if there's, major feasts being streamed from a church overseas, where I'm going to watch it and I'm going to get right into it. Okay. It's very different to saying, I'd really like to learn a hymn. If I get the opportunity, that would be nice. Yeah, I think one way versus the other, you can sort of see that there's more chance of achieving a a goal when you have a canon like that designed around it, rather than if you didn't. Okay. Another thing to these sort of subplans, so these were sort of subplans within that canon, is that they're complementary. So if you notice what I said, they all sort of led to the same thing. I did everything I could to try and attack back to the thing that I'm trying to achieve. All right, and you create a little bit of contingency. That's also always a safe thing. So as an example, if I miss this opportunity, then I've got this other opportunity. If I run late and I can't attend the liturgy, well, I've got the lesson, I've got the competition, I've got, my headphones at the gym. Like, I will always be able to sort of stay on course and maybe have a little bit of wiggle room. So if I fall, I can sort of pick up and make back some of that slack. Yeah? Does that sort of make sense in terms of practically sort of trying to get, I want you to take some of this and go home and think of areas in your life where you can start to build this out and give it a go and try it. And we'll talk about how we can do that as well a little bit later. So if we consistently execute on these plans, what we'll end up doing is creating a habit. Okay, that's no secret. And it's very hard actually to stop habits. I don't know if you've realized this, but if you've got a particular habit in your life, usually someone else tells you about the habit that you have. You don't really notice it, but these habits are quite hard to stop. And so the best way of changing that is actually just to replace it. Okay, so you look for another habit that can replace a habit that maybe you don't want to continue or you don't want in your life. And that's the best way of doing it. So Aristotle, who's a sort of a famous philosopher, Greek philosopher, says, "We are what we repeatedly do." So the number of things that you do and the actions you take essentially define who you are. And so then excellence is not an act, but a habit. So if you want to be excellent at something, it's not just a one-off act, it's actually what you do all the time, which then defines who you are. So to become excellent, you do something consistently, and it just essentially is your habits. Your habits create that. So successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. Yeah, would you agree with that or disagree with that? Successful people do consistently what other people do occasionally. If I study occasionally, then just an average person. If I study all the time, then I'm probably going to be a high achiever because I've just perfected that thing. If you think about anyone in any discipline, a doctor, a surgeon, a soccer player, the people who are most successful are the people who can back up their craft time and time and time again, no matter the circumstance, no matter the opponent, like a boxer, for example, whatever. No matter what's happening here, will always sort of succeed. Successful people do consistently what other people only do occasionally. And so did you know, like, that some research out there shows that it takes roughly 2 months to try and replace a habit. Roughly around 2 months, so that's sort of like 60 days or 50, 60 days. Does that sound familiar? Do you think that, what comes to mind when you hear sort of 50 days of the year or something like that? Yeah? Does it ring a bell to Lent, for example? I don't know if it's a coincidence, but it seems to me like some sort of divine coincidence that Lent in our church is about 55 days long. And so usually Lent becomes a really, really good opportunity for us to start to, instill these sorts of things, to have a spiritual canon and try and replace habits that we no longer want with, let's call them good habits or ones that we do want. And so the key principle that I want you to take home is that you don't rise in life to the level of your goals. We just saw earlier how many people had New Year's resolutions. We didn't all sort of get there. Some of us got there, 20% was what I heard from one person. So we don't actually rise to the level of our goals. If you just set a high goal in life, that doesn't mean you're going to achieve it because you've set a really high goal. The saying, like, shoot for the stars and Where do you land? But the moon and the stars are. I think because the moon's bigger. But anyway, yeah, so the saying of shoot for the moon and land among the stars, that doesn't really work practically in life. Okay, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your canon. Whatever rule you have, whatever structure you have, whatever system you have in place in your life, those plans and those habits, you will fall to that level. Okay? I mean, review your own year, review your own life to date. Have you had a different experience to that? Have you said to yourself, I'm going to be the smartest person in the class, and then sort of suddenly just become that because that's what you put ahead of you. I think the world gives us this false image. They preaches that you can become the next Elon Musk. Just believe in yourself. It doesn't really work that way, but you can get there if you build the right habits in your life. Okay, it's all those little things, those things that add up every day. It's the small things that nobody sees that create those big things that everybody wants. Okay, so I'll repeat it one more time. You don't rise to the level of your goals, but you often fall to the level of your canon. Okay? If you haven't sort of seen a canon or don't know what I'm talking about and it seems a bit odd to you, here's like a very, very simple, like it's just a grid, it's just a table. Someone said earlier, I think you become successful if you sort of into spreadsheets. I think I made this on a spreadsheet. If you've never written one down, so a lot of you will still have sort of some idea, but maybe haven't written it down. So it could look something like this, okay? And even if you're not familiar with this, believe it or not, you actually already have a canon. Because everybody actually does. Everyone has a canon. You don't need to create it from the beginning because what you're doing today is your canon. If you pray once a year, well, that's actually your canon. You do have something in place, and it's perfectly correlated with your current state. Your current outcomes, whatever you're achieving, is the direct result of your current canon. So you already have one. All you need to do is think about refreshing it. Okay, and this is something just to help you if you have never written it down. Okay, you already have one, and your spiritual state today reflects how effective, I guess, or it's a direct result of your current canon. Now, our church gives us a lot of options. It's like a buffet of treasures, I like to call it, and we can mix and match. We know from the church fathers that these things work. These things created saints, and so we learn from them. We don't need to recreate the wheel. And we know from the Desert Fathers that virtues always work better together. It's easier to attain them when you couple them up. So if you're trying to sort of, for example, get into your prayer life, it always helps if you're also reading the Bible. And surprise, surprise, it also helps if I'm also attending the liturgy. And they work in harmony like that. Okay? Any sort of questions on this? This is a very traditional concept, and it's something that's stood the test of time. In the monastery, every single monk will have a very formal sort of spiritual canon. They'll do tasbih at 4 a.m. They'll do their work, and you think to yourself, like, why? These guys have already given up their whole life, like they've died to the world. Why do they need a spiritual canon? They're living in the monastery. Like, what sin can they do? It's hardly anyone that visits, usually during the week. Maybe that's not the case, but you get my point. Why do they need a rule? Why do they need to be disciplined? So I think that sort of gives us some insight. Their spiritual success still relies upon having this plan, this structure. And like I said, that's been proven and tested, and we can learn from that richness. Yeah.
Say you're starting like ground zero, you don't have any good spiritual habits. What would be the first thing you recommend someone starts with? And do you think like it's better to kind of start small, build your way up, or do you think it's better to do something like this where you're doing like 4 different things on a daily basis spiritually to try build up this?
That's a really good question. Some of it, I guess, I might mention later, but I think the first thing you should do is not rely on your own ability and your own thinking. So you'll need a spiritual guide. Yeah. So it's like saying an athlete wants to begin competing in a particular sport. They will look for, good athletes will look for a coach, because, like you said, it isn't sort of a silver bullet. It isn't one answer that just will work for everyone. Depending on your situation, depending on your upbringing, depending on your circumstances, etc., there's a little bit of wisdom that needs to be applied. And so that we don't allow the devil to sort of sway us or, give us ideas that actually then just lead us crashing down. Because the devil is very, very good at highlighting your faults. The moment you fall, the devil goes, one devil's saying like, oh, just, it's not a big deal, do it. And then once you fall, there's another devil that says, I can't believe you did that. You got no hope. What's the point? Just give up now. Like, what's this for? What are you doing all this for? So it's a very sort of tricky area, right? I would though say it isn't about a decision. So it's about who you want to be. And so, yes, I think you wouldn't just choose sort of one thing to do. You're actually trying to change who you are. Like you're thinking about who you want to be. And so it isn't about the action, but it's about sort of the life that you will choose. So you either choose this life or not. It's not about just doing, like, it's not a tick box exercise. Yep, I prayed this morning, I'm good. It's not what we do, it's who we are. Less about the do and more about the who. So I would, I haven't really directly answered your question, but I think you need the guidance. And that's your own guidance too. Like, you pray about this. Like, Lord, reveal to me, I want to get to know you. You make the first step. Like, I don't know what to do. But if you have the guidance, I think your confession father or any spiritual guide will be able to sort of build that program for you. And yes, you definitely start very small. It's those small things that you do consistently that build the habits that then allow you to grow. You never aim big, like I say. You won't rise to your goal. You'll fall to that level of your habits. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions on this or builds? Vish?
So the canon, I think, looks really good, and like it's always quite helpful to, like, track that you're praying and reading your Bible and stuff. What about measuring something that's like difficult to measure, like the prayer and the quality of the prayer? Do you recommend anything for that? Or
Yeah, I think, look, it's not too. We shouldn't be too focused on measuring our own results. So the idea of this, not necessarily to measure your performance, but it is about it is more about planning your, what you're about to do. It's more about motivating you. You know why you're doing it. You've thought about this. It's not just like you woke up in the morning, what should I do? Third hour, sixth hour, what do you feel like? No, like it's structured. It's intentional. There's a reason behind it. There's a like a school curriculum, for example, builds, right? You start with learning algebra, then it moves to more complex concepts, and there's this growth. Now, how we grow and how quickly we grow, I think that's sort of none of our business. That part, either the spiritual guide can sort of be responsible for, or at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think if you're faithful in the small things, God will then add the blessing to that quality, if you know what I mean. You could do a really small service that's really silly, like I just clean the toilets at church. It's not really that important. But if I'm doing it faithfully, you might save someone's life. That's God's blessing on the small things that you do. So when you talk about the quality of the prayer, for example, not sure that would be something to really sort of focus on striving for. I mean, what would be the purpose of having a good quality prayer, for example? What would your answer be if I asked you what would be your purpose to aim for that?
No, I mean like quality, not in terms of like clarity, but I guess like just, you know, a good relationship with God, like where you feel His presence. I guess that it, you know, give you
Like a deeper relationship. Yeah.
that it'd give you a deeper relationship, I imagine.
Yeah. But that would be organic. Do you disagree? Like I don't think again you would be able to sort of set a target and actually work towards those qualitative areas. But like we said earlier in Mina's opening, we shouldn't waver from the small things. Like praying is important. That habit is important. Whether I feel like it or not, that's not the point. The point is to build the habit. The point is to discipline myself. The point is to have a plan, because I'm serious about this, because I want God to then bless. And I think those things will come. The blessings will come. The experience. So when God sees, I think your struggle and your effort, then I think he will come closer to you rather than the other way around. Does that answer your question? Not really, but
I've got one. I'm a bit unsure how to turn a list of goals into a plan.
yeah.
How does that work?
So we're not really turning the goals into the plan. We're saying you won't achieve your goal without a plan. So we're not trying to turn. So you can have a spiritual goal, but what we sort of demonstrate is really hard to actually achieve goals. I don't think having the goal is what's going to determine your success. It is the plan. And when having a layer, like a series of plans, layering them together, create like a system or a canon that then work in harmony. They're sort of consistent with one another. They're all achieving the same thing, and they build that ability for you with some contingency to have those habits to form who you are. Because we said, you are basically what you do consistently.
So to
answer?
achieve this goal, I'm gonna do this, and if something goes wrong, this is my emergency plan to get back on track.
Say it again. Sorry, the first part.
So you've got the goal, and you say to accomplish this goal, it's gonna look like this at a day-to-day level, and if something goes sideways, this is my plan to get back on track.
Yeah. I think good plans have those abilities to absorb what we would imagine to be normal in life. There are times you're going to wake up late. There are times you're going to be tired. There are times you're going to be sick. You factor those into your plans. Yeah, so a plan B is actually really just another plan that forms part of that canon. Yeah. I think with your goal, you said earlier, it's not, like I said, it's not so much about the doing as much as it is about like who we're going to be. So if you, rather than thinking about who, think of who. Like I want to be closer to God and a spiritual person. Not so much like I want to pray this morning. Like it shouldn't stop there. So don't keep your goals so what's the word, like mechanical. I think the goal is supposed to be more around what you want to be developing into, and that way you can sort of think about your plans to achieve that bigger picture rather than just sort of, how do I get from here to here now. Any other queries, questions, things that people want to share?
Bishoy's question kind of reminded me of a really nice story that I heard of when I was really young, that I don't know how true it is, but I thought, like, I always think about it. So basically, and maybe you guys have heard this, so basically there was a man who only had 1 minute time of day to come to church and just pray for 1 minute. But he did this so consistently. Like every single day he spent 1 minute, he would like wake up, go to church 1 minute, pray to God, go for work, go back home, go sleep, and repeat. Like it was all he had time for, all he could do. And then one day he got really, really sick. So he ended up in hospital and it was coming towards the end of his life. So when he was in hospital, he obviously couldn't go visit church. So what started happening is that a man who was actually Christ, he would come and he would visit him for a minute every day until like he passed on. So I think that's really beautiful because it It speaks for the quality of your like your intention, like who you want to be, like you're saying. Like you want to be the type of person who's consistent and committed more than the type of person who spends hours and hours doing something without good intentions.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, just thought
That's
I would-
very nice. Yeah. So I guess it hits the nail on the head, that story. It's a very good example of, what's lighting a candle? Like, is it really such a big deal? No, a 2-year-old can light a candle. Like, you light your candle for a birthday cake. It's nothing special, but it's the why he was doing it, how he was doing it. It's all those other things, not just the physical action. And look at the blessing of God. He saw something so small and decided to reward him 1,000,000 times over, like for Christ himself to visit him on his deathbed. I mean, that's pretty special.
From the list of goals that you had before, the clouds, some of these goals are very like materialistic
Yeah.
or earthly.
Yeah.
And it's fine because sometimes we've got stages in life and we need to have these goals to achieve these earthly things. Now, do you think that sometimes these earthly goals can take us away from our spiritual canon or from our spiritual goals? Like, you had some really nice spiritual goals, but the earthly goals, sometimes I fall into a trap. Okay, why? And then, okay, so why am I doing this? And then why? I keep falling into a pit of whys, and then I realize, what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very I'm glad you picked up on that, because we actually have that. Like that's reality. We have a list of goals, and some of them feel spiritual and others don't feel that spiritual, and we sort of question, is this should I have this? Is this like, do I need to feed my family? Like, is that something I should aim to do, or leave it to God? He'll send a raven with half a loaf of bread. I think, this is something Abun Antonius has said to us before, but if you're struggling to think about something spiritually, then all you need to do is insert Christ in the midst of that thing. So if you don't know the reason as to why you're doing it, maybe that's what you need to start with. So, buying a house, okay? It's just a materialistic goal, maybe, potentially, or is it? Like, why are you buying the house? Are you buying the house because it's a really good investment opportunity, and then when you sell it, you're going to make $1 million, and you're going to go party and like go overseas and like spend your money? Like, is that the point? Are you buying it because you're thinking of providing for other people? That when you have a family, you have an ability to have children, or to have a stable location that becomes a mini church. And so it always comes back to we are human beings. We do need to eat. We do live in society. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. You have to pay your taxes. You've got to do these things, but it's how we do them. It's why we do them, and it's how we see Christ in them. Yeah, Christ is in everything. The beautiful thing about the incarnation is that Christ not only came and became human, but he made everything we do as humans holy. There's nothing, we don't believe in that, the term haram, right? Nothing we do is wrong. It's just the abuse of that thing. Everything God created is blessed. Everything can be used to glorify his name. They might sound worldly things, but I think that's for us to try and elevate them from just being a carnal sort of idea or concept or a need to a spiritual purpose. There's a higher reason for this, and that comes back to you as well. A spiritual person who buys a house is going to do it a bit differently to someone who isn't, right? They might do it a bit more honestly. They might do it with more love. They might do it for different reasons, and how they use their house will be very different too. So, yeah, wealth in itself is not bad. Obviously, we know that, and I think, like I say, going on holidays, hanging out with friends, all these things Christ did. He came and shared every aspect of our life and made it holy and made it blessed. That we can rest assured that nothing in itself will be bad or take us away from Christ. Maybe we can just insert there Christ a bit more. So if you need to study all night, Well, what if you said a psalm every time you had a 10-minute break? Or, you've turned your study session actually into a vehicle to encourage you to pray more. So if you weren't studying, you wouldn't have said all those psalms. So actually that study is now a blessing. So, it's not something that's taking me away from church. Oh, I can't be at church because I'm at home studying for an exam tomorrow. No, actually my study has allowed me to experience church at home. Yeah. Anything else? Miss Labib? She doesn't need a microphone.
What if you start this and then you feel like you're in like a habit more than spiritual, like you're just doing it out of habit and
Fantastic.
then it just loses its flavor?
This is a great segue into the next section. So if I don't answer it in the next few slides, then just raise your hand again. So there's 4 important overarching things that I think we should consider, and we will sort of have a quick. How long do we have left, Mina? 10 minutes. Yeah, we'll discuss 4 overarching elements. Okay, over any of these things you'll include in your own canon. Okay, and I've made them all start with D, so you can go home and you can remember them. Sorry, I had to use the Olympics as a little bit of a inspiration. You think of these people; they're pretty disciplined, right? They're Olympic athletes, and we're spiritual athletes, so there's a lot in common. If you don't know this person, so I'll tell you a little bit about the athlete. This is what we're going to do, play a game. Tell you a little bit about the athlete. You tell me what we can draw from that, or how it relates to us as spiritual athletes. Okay, so this young lady, Saya Sakibara, is the BMX gold medalist in her sport. I think she's around 19, and she last Olympics suffered an injury. I think it was last Olympics. Oh no, it was an event just before the Olympics. She suffered an injury that almost sort of made her rethink like why she should be in this sport. It's really dangerous. Like maybe I should give it up. The person next to her is her brother. He in the last Olympics, this one I got right, actually did have an accident that paralyzed, I think, half his body and affected his speech. He couldn't speak. Okay? So she's faced these obstacles, and come in 2024, she goes to Paris for the Olympics and wins gold in the BMX event. What do you think I'm referring to here? Very nice, yeah. So yeah, in hardship we can always sort of see another message. We can draw something out. Anything else? Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yes. Like we just heard, you're not going to sort of win day one. And when you do struggle, it can either put you off or it can actually motivate you a bit more. It can sort of drive you on. So the moment she got her gold medal, the first person she ran to was her brother, as if to say, like, this is for you, this is yours, like you deserve this. And she was determined to, to provide that to him. It's a very sort of touching moment. They're obviously in tears. But I think, so when we think of the spiritual canon, like make sure you have a desire. Because there are times where, like Monica said, it can become mechanical. It can just become a series of actions. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing it. My parents told me to do this. I'm just going to do it so they can get off my back. But we should have a desire. If you don't have a desire, like go and rediscover that motivation in your life. Why are you here at church tonight? You can be in many other places. What are you doing here? You should have a reason. Like anything you do, you should know why you're doing it, or else you're just wasting your time. Okay, clarify that purpose and keep it always before you. I know people who, like, when they have a target that they're trying to achieve, they actually write it out. They physically write it out. anywhere. You'll see it on in their diary. You'll see it in their phone. It'll be the back desktop of their computer. It'll be on the back of their door, their room door. So when they wake up in the morning, it's a reminder. Yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm here. I'm sure this young girl, Saya, would have every morning woken up and said, "Yep, I'm winning gold in Paris. I'm going to win gold in Paris." All right, so she discovered her motivation, or had a motivation, which is probably her brother's incident, but she clarified that person and kept it before her. C.S. Lewis has a very famous quote. I'll read it to you. It's very nice. It says, "Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important." Have many people heard that before? Yeah. I'll read it again. "Christianity, if false, is of no importance." If it's false, like, there's no point even talking about it. If it's true, it is infinitely important. There is nothing more important than Christianity if Christianity is true. So you've got to ask that question to yourself. Do you believe in God? Do you think what we do here is like maybe true, not sure, I haven't thought about it? Because if it is true, then it is of infinite importance. There's nothing more important. And so you should always keep that in your mind. Always remind yourself, this is why I'm doing these things in that little grid or my plan or my canon. This is why I'm doing it. Because there's nothing in my life that is more important than this. Okay? The only thing Christianity cannot be is moderately important. You can't be lukewarm. You either don't come to church, or if you're at church, you better be on fire. One of the two. There's no room for the in-betweeners, because it just doesn't make sense. It's either true or false. True? Does anyone want to debate the topic? Can Christianity be partially true? Like Christ sort of rose? No, right? It's either yes or no. The other thing is, your motivation doesn't necessarily need to be like here in that quote, I'm referring to God being your motivation, but it can also be like something personal to you. It can be something that means a lot to you. It could be something that your mother used to do or has taught you, and you want to hold steadfast to those principles that your parents taught. It could be a servant you had in your life that really touched you, or a church that really served you and you want to serve others. So it can be a personal inspiration. It doesn't necessarily need to be God, even though obviously that is the ultimate desire and the ultimate motivation. The last one I have is, don't let your motivation be emotional. Why? Because emotions aren't steady. Yeah, one day I feel happy, one day I don't feel happy. So it can't be because I'm excited. Like, that can't. It makes me excited. It makes me happy. That can't be a motivation. People who get married and say he makes me happy or she makes me happy, they often don't always then tend to make them happy, and things go south, right? Yeah, we have a few couples in the room. All right, so it can't be based on emotion. It needs to be something solid. It needs to be based on a truth or a fact in life. All right, do you like this little game? I've got 3 others. Try and fly through them. Okay, I've got 2 people here. The top is Arisa True. She is, I think, 14 years old. She won gold in the skateboarding, freestyle or whatever, like where they do the tricks. Gold at the age of 14. And the guy at the bottom, Cam McAvoy, I think his nickname is the Professor, because he studied physics. So he's known as the Professor. This guy went to 4 Olympics. The first Olympic, it was only in relays. The next 3 Olympics, he had individual events. He was the favorite in Rio, so 3 Olympics ago, to win gold in, I think, 50 and 100 freestyle, and he completely failed. I think he came 7th or something. So he was he was the hot favorite. Everyone thought, yeah, sure, he's in tip-top form. He's going to win, and he really failed. He then wanted to sort of leave the sport. Like, he failed again, I think, in Rio, and basically quit. So he hung up his boots, and then something happened, and he came back in. So he changed his events. He entered the 50 meters. He changed his training and did a lot of out of the pool training, a lot of breathing, a lot of gym work, and he wins 50 in the freestyle in the Paris Olympics. What do you think we can take away from these people? Like, what, one person had decided to leave for some reason, came back, and the other one, being a 14-year-old, what would make her decide to go to the Olympics and compete? Yeah. Yeah, very good. So if you didn't hear that, it's basically said everyone has their own time. You decide when it's right for you. You have a sort of it's a personal thing. And so I sort of will take the point a little bit further and say, you just need to make the decision. You need to decide. Is it now? Is it later? Are you ready for it or not? Saint Augustine has a famous saying that says, Lord, teach me to repent, just not now. Like, he wanted to, but he just didn't think it was now. So you need to make that call. You need to make that decision. I'll just go through this in the interest of time, but essentially you spend time, quiet time, where you think over and convince yourself. Like I say, it can't be based on emotion, it needs to be based on logic. So think about it. Is this something you want to do? Because when you make that decision, when you decide, then there's no one else to blame. Like, it was you who did it. I always think of love actually as a decision. So a lot of people think of marriage and love to be an emotion. I actually think it's just a decision. Have you decided to love this person or not? If you have decided, then you stick to your decision. Like, you got to be a man of your word. So in the same way, if you decide to love God, then you love him. You do things that you would do to people you love, spend time with them. Believe in yourself. This 14-year-old, like, she could have thought, not sure, maybe next one when I'm a bit more experienced, when I'm a bit older, I'll skip out on this one. But she went and won. So don't let the devil plant these ideas and seeds of despair, like, you're not going to do it, what's the point, don't waste your time, the last time you did it you failed, and picture yourself succeeding, picture yourself doing it, believe that you are the son of Christ or the daughter of Christ. Like, you've got to think and see yourself in that light if you have any hope in then becoming that person. People who are into soccer and coaching, I've been told that apparently when you come to take a pen, maybe Peter will know, if you're if you've got a penalty shootout, or there's a foul in the box and you've got to take a penalty, there's usually, or a lot of the time, there's sort of one or two players that have been chosen to take on that responsibility, because it's a very nerve-wracking situation where you have to take that kick. You can either win or lose. You can either make a complete change to the game, or really sort of change that momentum and kill the rest of the game. So from what I hear, one way of your preparation as a penalty penalty shooter is to visualize yourself scoring the goal. So you think and dream and see and watch yourself shooting that goal, right past the keeper's hands into the back of the net. The crowds go wild. You run to the goal post. Like, that's the emotion and the thought process in your mind. So when he comes to the spot, when you're under that pressure, you just go on repeat. You just go play the things I've been imagining, the things I've been visualizing. I think in our spiritual lives, we sort of have to have the same attitude. If you see yourself as like a nobody, nothing's going to work, God doesn't love me, yeah, well, maybe you're not going to get anywhere. And act today. Have urgency. Make that decision. I'm serious. That's it. We're going to do it today. Not next week, not next year, not next fast. You act today. Time is precious. Every small step makes a difference. Don't make excuses. You've decided you're going to go to church, you're going to go to church. If it rains in the morning, you're going to go to church. If you're a bit tired, you're going to go to church. You get a flat tire, you're going to go to church. You decided you're going to go to church. Okay? And don't make exceptions. Sometimes people say, okay, look, I'm going to fast, but the doctor's now diagnosed me with blah, blah, so I need to speak to my confession father because he needs to give me a hell because I'm worthy of it, I should get an exception. I'm not the same as the guy next to me. So I need to be treated differently. For example, God tells us to tithe. Yeah, give 10% of our money to God or to the church or to the poor. A lot of people can say, well, I'm a student. So clearly, tithing doesn't apply to me right now. Maybe when I make money, then I should have followed that particular concept of the Bible. I'll pick and choose. I make an exception to myself. I just lost my job, so I probably won't tithe for a little while until I get myself back on track. I've got a few bills to pay, and then I'll start tithing. So don't do that. The stories of Joseph and Daniel in the Old Testament are perfect examples. Right? Joseph, he had every reason to just let this powerful lady do whatever she wanted so she could be quiet and life goes on. And he'd be a victim, he'd be the good guy still. But, he didn't make exceptions, he didn't make excuses. He decided, no, that's wrong, it means it's wrong. Daniel, same thing. So he was, with his friends in Babylon, and they were to eat of the king's delicacies, but he was fasting. So, sorry, I'm fasting means I'm fasting. So if I have an event at work and I'm fasting, but they didn't cater for me and I need to eat, I'm a human being, I need to eat. So I could just eat what they give me. I'll just pick out a few things here and there, but I'll also taste a bit of this and that, and it's okay. Don't be that type of person. I'll just go through. I'll run through the others without asking any input, even though I do like the discussion. This is one of my favorites, my favorite points. If you don't know Ariane Titmus, so she's a gold medalist in a few different events, and she backed it up. I think she did the 200 and 400, and then again in the next Olympics did the same. So that's a really big achievement in swimming. I think it's very hard to do that. She's probably one of the only people to have done that. Now, last Olympics, which was I think it was Tokyo, after COVID, she won both those events, and that's her coach in the picture on the side. He sort of went crazy, and the cameras captured it. He started he was jumping up and down. He was going crazy, about to break the that glass barricade there. And it just goes to show sort of, I guess, how much it meant to him as a coach, and how happy he was for the person that he was coaching to have achieved that particular dream or goal in her life. So my point, I guess, around it is find yourself a coach. Be discipled. For me, I feel that most of my life I've always tried to ensure that that was something that I had. And I only tried to do it because I found that it actually helped. Don't rely on yourself. Don't trust yourself. We're humans. We're susceptible to fall. We always think we're a little bit different. We can always justify things in our minds. Go to the experts. Go to the person who you can see has already achieved something, and ask and learn from them. You can just observe them. The disciples of Saint Anthony said, "You don't even need to speak. Just looking at your face is enough for us." Be in their company. Pick up on their habits. So if you find a spiritual father, ask them, "Can I come to a visitation with you?" If you go to the hospital, do you mind if I'm happy to drive you around. People who are well read, ask them, I'm interested in this topic, what should I read? Get advice. It never hurts to get advice. And you should always, I think, get advice. And get multiple people's advice, because maybe sometimes one person has their own limitations. So don't just trust one person, but have multiple people. whether it's multiple people for different topics or whether it's multiple people for the same topic, and you're really just sort of pressure testing, because no one's perfect, so everyone's advice will be sort of based on their opinion or their experience and maybe fall short in one area. So you can always sort of, cross-reference those bits of advice. And over time, these people will change. Like, it could be a confession father for your whole life, or it could be a confession father for when you were young, and then when you grow, you start to then, have another spiritual guide that you met somewhere, or your parents, or when you enter different stages of life, you may have a different sort of coach. I just got an example there of St. John the Shore. This is the power of being discipled. So St. John obviously was told to water a stick, and because of his obedience and humility to the coach, then he was blessed. It's not because St. John prayed for it to blossom. It's not because St. John wanted to prove a point. God showed and revealed to him the blessing that he was to receive because of his obedience to his spiritual father. There's another story in the Desert Fathers of a monk who tells his disciple to go and fetch him a hyena. So he goes, go find a hyena and bring it to me. It's a bit weird, right? And obviously hyenas, they're not friendly. They're not like, have you watched Lion King? Yeah, so that's what they're like. So anyway, he comes into his confession father, lo and behold, with a hyena. What does his confession father do? He slaps him and says to him, I told you to bring a hyena, not a dog. Go take that outside. Right? Look at it was a hyena, but he's breaking his pride. He just realized this guy's a saint, and I'm still his coach. And what I care about is his spiritual destination. So God revealed, I guess, something to the coach there, but all I'm saying is you're blessed, and the miracles can occur through your obedience and humility if you are a disciple. Plant yourself within a structure. Another way to do this is not to be discipled to an individual, but to be discipled to a structure. You could be discipled to a book. So Pope Corollas was discipled to Saint Isaac the Syrian, I think it was. How? They lived, I think, centuries apart, through his books. So he used to hand scribe a lot of his sayings and was discipled through those sayings. So he really understood the nature of this saint through the writings of the saint. So it could be a book, it could be a church, like maybe you're a disciple to the church. The church itself teaches, it's the best teacher. It's our mother. If you follow what the church tells us to do, you'll become a saint. If you attend its prayers, if you believe its theology, if you participate in its services, if you take of its communion and love its members, that is a theology. That's a university degree. Like, to try and follow those things, you can be discipled by the church. You can be discipled by a service, having a structure. Like, I'm going to put a plug for Sunday school, but if you are a servant, whether in Sunday school or Bible study, anything else, and there is a structure there is somebody telling you, maybe think of this. Can you come and do this? Why didn't you come to the meeting? Where were you today? That is a kind of structure that can help, if you allow yourself to be discipled by it, can bring forth fruits. Sorry, I've gone overboard, but these last two, really, I guess the idea here is to become dedicated. The guy at the top, he entered the BMX. He won gold last time. He didn't do so well this time, but the reason why I've got him up there is he built a BMX concourse in his backyard so that he can train for the Olympics. So he was basically training, obviously, every day, probably all day long. That, to me, is a little bit of dedication. Like, you're pretty bothered if you're going to do that. The girl at the bottom, Jess Fox, she's quite famous now, but she's known for the canoeing and the kayaking. Again, she won gold in both events. Last Olympics, she missed out on one of them. So she's in two main events. She only got gold in one, and I think it was silver in the other, or bronze. And she was pretty gutted. But she was dedicated. She's now older, but performed even better than she did last time and really dominated the sport. So obviously a lot of hard yards went in behind the scenes. So training is essential. Make time. The biggest killer in our lives today is probably our ability to find time. Time is really a struggle. And at your age, I think it might be an opportunity to start thinking about time, because when you get responsibilities, get married, have children, mortgages, whatever, as they keep piling up, you tend to lose your time more and more. And know that it takes time. Like we said before, be patient. This takes time. Be aware of that. But persist. Make the sacrifices, because obviously no pain, no gain. Like, it's going to be hard. But if you foresee those hurdles and know that they're there, they won't scare you. You'll be able to rise to the occasion. And it's those small decisions that sort of add up. Failure is very rarely the result of one single decision. It's when you consistently fail on things that you tend to then sort of completely stuff up. So foresee those hurdles, and there is a tipping point. You will get to a point where you'll see, you've just sort of come over, and now you're on the slippery slope down. You're riding that wave. It's really just much easier and much more rewarding. So to conclude, in the end, I think I'll circle back to one of the questions. It's not your efforts. Okay, this is one key difference between, for example, Olympic success and spiritual success. It's not really by your efforts that you'll achieve results, but nonetheless, it is an essential part. Okay, it's not by your efforts that you will achieve results, but they are essential nonetheless. So you have to put in the effort either way, but that's not the reason or the way in which you'll achieve it. There's this nice little story from a book called Practical Spirituality, according to the Desert Fathers by Father Athanasius Iskander. I really like this book. It's a small little book, but it's really deep and very to the point, and it's quite, I found it very enjoyable to read. I'll read to you this little story just to demonstrate this point that I made. Imagine a little child trying to reach a toy placed on a table. The table is too high for him to reach, so he tries to stand on his tippy toes, but it doesn't work. He starts jumping up and down, but he can't reach. He even tries to climb on some object or another, only to fall and hurt himself. Totally frustrated, he starts to cry. His father, who has been watching him this whole time, then reaches for the toy and gives it to him. The little child did not get the toy by his own efforts, but the efforts did incline the heart of his father to help him. Do you get my point? So he never reached the toy, no matter what he did, he never actually ended up reaching the toy. But because of the process that he went through, his father said, you know what, here you go, silver platter. I'll just hand it to you. You deserve it. You earned it. And it's not the destination that matters, obviously, it's the journey along the way. There's a famous story, again, in the Desert Fathers, of a monk who was told to go get water from a faraway lake and come and water the plants in the monastery. The only problem is that the basket that he was given to water the plants was made of palm leaves. So obviously there's a problem there, right? Again, out of obedience and humility, as the monks will normally do, he did do that. Obviously, by the time he comes to the monastery to water these plants, there's not any water, maybe 2 drops sitting on the side of this basket that's got holes in it. Obviously, it's made of palm leaves. And you sort of think to yourself, logically, well, what's the point? Is there any benefit to this person doing this? So I think he asked his confession. He's asked his spiritual father, and his father said to him, "Have a look into your basket. Can't you see that it's become cleaner?" So even though he didn't really achieve his goal, even though that the purpose, the destination wasn't there, but it's really that process along the way that matters. I'll read this very quickly and then we'll conclude. So this again is from Saint Paul. And just like the Olympians are striving for a gold medal, we should be striving for a crown in heaven. Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty. So he runs with certainty. He has a plan. Thus I fight not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. Same person that we read about it before, the guy with the big CV. He proves to us at the end of the day, if these athletes and these people are doing these things in the world for perishable things, like for titles that mean nothing, what more should we be doing for something that's so valuable, so permanent? Is a gold medal more valuable than an eternal crown? So just to recap, to achieve your spiritual goals, I need to consistently execute on my plans to create a series of habits, which is the idea of a spiritual canon. This discipline in itself is not the success that we're after, but rather the growth we are unknowingly blessed with in the process, obviously with the hand of God. Okay? And those 4 Ds that I want you to go home and sort of think about when you design your own spiritual canon is to have a desire. Second one is to make that decision, then be discipled, and then really just be determined. Put in that dedication. This girl here, Michelle, I think it's Janicki, she went to the Olympics after she was injured, and then in the heats of her hurdle, she's a 100-meter hurdlist, she falls, and she doesn't know it at the time, but she tears a tendon in her leg. But she gets up and continues running, because if she doesn't make the end of the race, then she can't go in and have a second chance for qualification. Okay? She then does a bit of between that event and the next event to qualify. So these are just heats, just to qualify. She does, all the work she needs to do, physio, tries to sort of stretch, and she goes in and runs the second, her second chance to qualify with a torn tendon. Obviously, she knows she's got no chance. When she was interviewed at the end of that race, you'd expect her to be quite disappointed, and she said, I just did all this because I wanted to compete. Her goal was to compete. Yeah, she just wanted to be at the Olympics. It meant so much to her. What should we be saying about the kingdom of heaven? She had no chance of winning. She was running with a torn tendon, but it meant so much to her. And I think all of this means so much to us that we ought to at least compete and let God do the rest. And glory be to God forever. Sorry, I went overboard, but if there's...
No, that's all right. Thank you so much, Michael. I think I speak for everyone when I say that was immensely beneficial and very practical. We're just going to stand up now for a hymn. I don't think there's any announcements, but outside we've got food and hangouts. We'll just stand up for a hymn and then we'll go.
Hold my hand, O Lord, like you held Peter's hand when he started to drown. You gently held his hand, lifted him over the waves, and made him feel safe, lifted him over the waves and made him feel safe, and me to a Lord. Hold my hand, and me to a Lord. Hold my hand. The waves are strong for me, makes my heart tremble. And the winds, are, Lord, are strong. I'll not be able to stand. When the ship goes up and down, and the rocks, when the ship goes up and down, and the rocks are in the way, tell the waves to be calm and hold me in your arms. Tell the waves to be calm, hold me in your arms. Enter my ship, Lord, and also in my life. Cast my fear away and heal all my pain, and dwell in my heart and fill it with your peace, and dwell in my heart and fill it with your peace. Never leave me alone to walk in my path. Never leave me alone. If I ever doubt you or get lost in the way, bring me back to live with you all my life. Bring me back to live with you all my life. You are my Father, Lord. Your heart is full of love. You are my Father, Lord. Your heart is full of love. Hold my hand, Lord, like you held Peter's hand when he started to drown. You gently held his hand, lifted him over the waves, and made him feel safe, lifted him over the waves, and made him feel safe, and me to a Lord. Hold my hand, and me to a Lord. Oh.
the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, amen. We thank you, Lord, for all things. Dear Lord, we are weak. We can't do anything in this life without you. We ask you, Lord, to strengthen us. Give us wisdom. Give us guidance. You, Lord, make that first step. When Adam sinned in the garden, the first thing he did was hide. You're the one who came looking out for him. We, Lord, are the sons of Adam and Eve. We need you to come to look for us. We struggle. Do not wait for us, Lord, to reach out to you. We ask you and invite you to take the first step. Strengthen us in our lives. Help us to understand what we're here for. What's our mission? Each one of us, Lord, have a great and perfect plan in your mind, in your heart. Help us to fulfill that, Lord, to become your image and likeness by the time we die. Help us to make those goals, make those decisions in our lives, in our daily lives, build those habits to then really inspire our life. Help us to be a beacon and a light to the world and a salt to the earth as you have commanded us. We love you, Lord, and we ask you to forgive us all our many sins. Be with this church and all its servants. Be with the youth who stand before you. Be with them in their lives and bless them, bless their families. And be with our priests and His Holiness and our Bishop and give them wisdom. And through the intercessions of your Mother, the Holy Theotokos, the Ever Virgin, Our Lady, Saint Mary, whom we've just celebrated, her Assumption, and through the prayers of Archangel, great Archangel Michael and Saint Bishoy, Saint Stephen, and all your saints and angels, hear us when we pray together as one family, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven.